very pleased to have in the studio with me my old friend and colleague Carl Frisch, Executive Director of Allied Progress right now. AlliedProgress.org is the website. You can tweet him at Carl Frisch. It's with a K, K-A-R-L-F-R-I-S-C-H, or at Allied Progress. Carl, welcome.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to be back.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
And you're not hosting the show this time, I am.
All right, it's nice.
Yeah. So what is Allied Progress?
We are a online grassroots organization that uses hard-hitting research to take on powerful special interests. So there are a lot of issues out there. The progressives have great ideas on how to solve them, but we get mired down with the opposition getting in our way or sabotaging our efforts. So we look at who that opposition is. Oftentimes it's more than just the Koch brothers that are standing in the way. We do research on those elements, and then we expose the folks that are standing in the way of progress.
It seems to me that this is not always a partisan thing. I mean, I'm looking at Debbie Wasserman-Shultz in Florida, for example, supporting the payday lending industry. Right. A lot of us have been scratching our heads on this. We one day, I don't know, a month or so ago, I suggested to people that they call her office. We ended up shutting down all her offices. It wasn't my intention, but it's what happened.
Well,
I mean, they basically
she needs to hear from people.
Yeah, they stopped answering the phones. I mean, it was a strong enough response because people actually care about.
It's not partisan. It's ideological. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
There are plenty of Democrats and Republicans who are awful when it comes to payday lending. And for people that don't know, payday lending is a short-term loan that people take out. They think that it's only going to be 2 weeks, and then the payday lender will take the money out of their account and they'll be done with it. What ends up happening, though, is because the interest rates are so high, 300, 400, sometimes 1,000%, right. The person ends up trapped in this cycle of debt where they're taking out one loan to pay for another, to pay for another, to pay for another. Right. And that's by design. Payday lenders know that the only way that they can make significant money that they're making is by trapping people in this cycle of debt.
It's just a variation on what 40 years ago was the local neighborhood loan shark who worked for a guy who had an Italian name.
It's the mob.
To use the stereotype. No diss on Italians.
The rates are probably worse with payday lenders than they were with the mob.
Right. Yeah. And instead of breaking your kneecaps when you don't pay now, what they do is they go to court and they throw you in jail.
Right.
So
right. It's one of the many.
Is worse.
It's one of the many ways that industries have sprung up to try and profit on the backs of the poor.
Yeah.
It's the most insidious. Millions of people, and we all know people that have taken out payday loans. People don't talk about it because it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
They're embarrassed that they've done this and that they've been taken advantage of and that they're having trouble getting out from underneath that rock. And Debbie Wasserman-Shultz, one of the most high-profile members of Congress from Florida,
the DNC.
Yeah. Was not only supporting the so-called Florida model, which is just a horrible, thing. They say that the Florida model would be great for everybody in terms of payday lending law. Meanwhile, in Florida, the average borrower takes out 9 loans in a row. 1 in 3 take out a dozen loans in a row, and the interest rate is over 300% there. So it's not a good model that anybody should be emulating. But she took $68,000 from payday lenders, and then she co-sponsored this legislation to try and undercut the CFPB and the president, who were trying to reform payday lending. They're still trying. And she went around and tried to lobby other Democratic lawmakers to join her in the effort.
Good luck with that.
Well, there are quite a few from Florida. Again, it's these Florida members who have been taking tens of thousands of dollars from payday lenders to push the so-called Florida model. It is not a model that anybody should be emulating.
Right. This is actually, before Richard Nixon lifted the 10% cap on the usury laws, this would have been against the law, period, flat out.
People are usually shocked. When you ask the average person how much do they think the APR, of a payday loan might be, and these are people that are not necessarily following the news. I'm about to sneeze.
That's quite all right. Bless you in advance. There you go.
Who are not necessarily following the news, they might say, well, it's a lot, right? Like 50%. Mm-hmm. And then you're saying no, and they say 150%. You say no. The average in a lot of places is 300%, 500%, 600%, 1,000%. Wow. And in Florida, there's this payday lending company called Amscott Financial, and they have bankrolled the campaigns of Democrats and Republicans all over the state and all over the country. The founder, this guy, Ian McKitchney, he's from Scotland. 15, 20 years ago, his company, Amscott Financial, was charged with racketeering. And the settlement to get out of the racketeering charge was that Ian McKitchney would be no longer allowed to sell insurance in the state of Florida for life.
Wow.
And this is the man who's bankrolling Debbie Wasserman-Shultz and a host of other Democratic and Republican congresspeople in Florida so that they will advance the so-called Florida model.
So back to alliedprogress.org, which is your organization that you're working with now. You're the executive director of. What are you doing specifically about this kind of thing and many of the other high-profile issues that you're looking at that might be analogous to this? So
we do a variety of different types of research on these issues, and then we come up with creative ways to get the information out there. With Debbie Wasserman-Shultz, we started using the hashtag #DebtTrapDebbie. We used it in television ads that we ran in her district in the run-up to the presidential primary when we knew a lot of people who are engaged in politics would be paying attention. We've run billboards in her district. We've got a mobile billboard that's still circling Capitol Hill and the Democratic National Committee and other places that she might be to let her know that people are not going to stand for this. And now we're taking it a step further. We're inviting people to visit our website, alliedprogress.org/whoisnext, to vote for the next Florida member of Congress who we should expose so that their constituents can know that they're carrying the water for payday lenders and sabotaging the president's effort to rein in this predatory industry.
Wow. That's serious stuff. That's serious activism.
7 members of Congress from Florida. They've all taken at least $10,000 from the industry. They've all written letters to the CFPB calling on them to adopt the disastrous Florida model. They've all sponsored or co-sponsored legislation that would gut the CFPB's ability to regulate the industry. And now we're going to let people decide who we're going to expose next. This is just the beginning. Reporters kept asking me, who else are you going to do besides Debbie Wasserman-Schultz? Well, we're giving people the opportunity to vote now.
Wow. Do you want to give us the list of names?
Alphabetical order. Corrine Brown, she's from Orlando and Jacksonville. Kathy Castor, another Democrat from Tampa, St. Pete. Lois Frankel from Boca Raton. Alcee Hastings, which is right next door to Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach. Patrick Murphy, who many people probably know because he's fairly high profile right now, from Port St. Lucie and Palm Beach Gardens. Bill Posey, a Republican from Melbourne, Cocoa Beach. And Dennis Ross from Lakeland and Plant City, also a Republican. So 5 Democrats on the list, 2 Republicans. People are voting right now. We've already received hundreds of votes with very little publicity thus far. This is the first interview we've done about it. So
this is at alliedprogress.org/whoisnext. Who is next? Okay, right. /whoisnext. And what about what is next? Are you taking topic by topic and really drilling down deep, or are you taking a variety of topics and pushing them simultaneously?
It's a variety of topics. Right now we're working on voting rights, specifically proof of citizenship requirements that have been pushed out of Kansas here into Washington. It's kind of complicated for another day. But in terms of payday lending, the reason we're on top of it right now is because the CFPB is preparing to announce rules that would regulate payday lenders nationwide.
Which is why this is all happening.
Right. And that's supposed to happen within the next month or so. Everybody thinks that regulations for these agencies will be put out by the 15th or 16th of May. So we're on top of that, and we're exposing the industry for what it's doing here, effectively buying members of Congress.
Right. And arguably this is an industry that shouldn't even exist. Senator Sanders proposed that post offices provide banking services for low-income people.
It's a great idea. There's a lot of different ways.
All over the world.
In California, they've given permission to nonprofit organizations to try and figure out ways to offer low interest rate or no interest rate loans. So there are a lot of ways that we can do this if we get out of the way and if we crack down on the folks that are abusing
What if we just did it the way that back before Reagan we did with health insurance, at least in Michigan where I grew up. Hospitals and health insurance companies by law had to be not-for-profits, and schools. Why don't we say, low-income lenders have to be not-for-profit?
I think it's certainly something that they should explore. Yeah. Right now, the CFPB has to be given the room to make hard, effective regulations, and that's why we're going after these members who are standing in the way.
Good on you. Hang on just a second here, Carl.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Carl Frisch with us. He's the executive director of Allied Progress, alliedprogress.org/whoisnext.
That's right.
There you go. Thank you, Carl.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.